Knock me down and you'll win $50,000. Sergeant Brock Callahan's cold challenge struck Maya Williams straight in the face. He smirked in the middle of the training floor, making all 30 recruits around them hold their breath. Before anyone could laugh, he turned his eyes toward Maya Williams and raised his voice. Miss Williams, this is a mandatory field reaction test. Step on the mat, or I fail you right now for insubordination. The trap snapped shut instantly. If she refused, she would be expelled. If she fought back, she would fall straight into his trap on the live stream. Seeing Brock's filthy scheme clearly, Maya did not step back even half a pace. She tightened the strap of her protective helmet, drove her combat boots hard onto the sparring mat with firm, forceful steps, and entered the arena, locking her eyes on her enemy. The internal live stream cameras were already on. Red lights blinked from the corners of the training hall. Recruits stood shoulder to shoulder, their faces tight, their mouths shut. Some looked at Brock. Some looked at Maya. Most looked like they wished they were anywhere else. Brock held up a thick white envelope wrapped with a red rubber band. $50,000, he said. All you have to do is put me on the ground. Then he dropped the envelope onto the mat and kicked it hard. It skidded across the floor and slammed straight into Maya's boot. A few recruits laughed. Not because it was funny, because Brock Callahan was the kind of man people laughed for when they were afraid not to. Maya did not look down. She was 27 years old, the only black woman in her training class, and one of the highest-scoring recruits in the academy. Her scores in de-escalation, crisis judgment, and non-lethal control were better than Brock liked, better than he could ignore, better than a man like him could forgive. She stood still, hands open at her sides, breathing through her nose, refusing to give him the flinch he wanted. This is supposed to be a field reaction assessment, she said, not a prize fight. Brock grinned. Out there on the street, rookie. Suspects don't care what things are supposed to be. He began circling her. Here's the scenario. I'm the suspect, armed, agitated, unpredictable. Your job is to control me before I hurt someone. Unless, of course, you're not built for that kind of pressure. Maya lifted one hand, palm out. Sir, keep your hands visible and step back. Her voice was calm, clear, exactly the way the academy trained them to speak. Brock hated that. That's cute, he said. That little textbook voice. You think that saves you when a real man is coming at you? Maya kept her eyes on his hands. Step back, sir. He took one step closer instead. From the edge of the mat, Marcus Reed shifted his weight. Maya saw it without turning her head. Marcus had been her closest ally since week 1. But alliance meant very little inside a place like this. One wrong word to Brock Callahan could cost a recruit everything. Marcus knew that. He had seen 2 cadets washed out in the first month for attitude problems that sounded a lot like asking questions. He wanted to speak up. Maya could feel it, but she also knew what he feared. Not pain, not embarrassment, but being pushed out of the academy before he ever got the chance to prove he belonged. Brock saw Marcus move and snapped his head toward him. Something to say, Reed? Marcus froze. No, Sergeant. That's what I thought. Brock turned back to Maya, satisfied. Men like him did not need everyone to agree with them. They only needed the room to stay quiet. Maya had grown up around that kind of quiet. Her father, James William, had once worn a badge in this same state. He had believed a badge was not a weapon, not a crown, not a permission slip to make frightened people more afraid. He used to tell Maya, power without restraint is just fear wearing a uniform. Then James reported misconduct inside his department. After that, the story changed. Files disappeared. Witnesses forgot. Supervisors stopped answering calls. By the time Maya was 15, her father's name had already been dragged through enough mud that people lowered their voices when they said it. Unstable, difficult, not a team player. Maya had spent 12 years hearing those words float around her family like smoke. She had come to the academy to clear the smoke. Brock stepped closer. You know what your problem is, William? Maya did not answer. You think good grades mean you can do this job. You think being careful makes you ready. But out there, careful gets people killed. Out there, nobody cares how many diversity boxes you check. The room tightened. Maya kept her face still. My race has nothing to do with this assessment. Brock smiled like he had been waiting for that exact sentence. Then prove it doesn't. He lunged forward suddenly, closing the space. Maya stepped back, keeping distance. Sir, stop. Keep your hands where I can see them. Brock kept coming. "Sir, do not come any closer." He leaned in, close enough that she could smell coffee on his breath. His hand rose as if to adjust her collar, but his fingers caught the fabric at her throat and held it. "Remove your hand," Maya said. The audio light on the main livestream panel blinked off. Brock had tapped the control clipped near his belt. To everyone else, it looked like part of the exercise. To Maya, it felt like the room had just lost its witness. He lowered his voice. "I crushed old James Williams' career 12 years ago," he whispered. "And today, I'm going to personally throw his trash daughter out of this department." For 1 second, the training hall vanished. Maya heard only her father's name, not as a rumor, not as a memory. As a confession, "I crushed old James Williams' career." Her hand twitched. Brock felt it. His eyes brightened. That was what he wanted. Not a test, not a lesson, a reaction. One sharp move from her. 1 second of anger. One piece of footage he could hold up and say, "See? I told you she was unstable." Maya knew how to take him down. She could break his grip, turn his wrist, shift her hip, and put him flat on the mat before he understood he was falling. She had trained for exactly this kind of close contact control. Her body knew the answer before her mind finished forming the question, but her father's voice rose in her memory. Power without restraint is just fear wearing a uniform. Maya unclenched her fingers. She looked Brock straight in the eye. "Do not touch me again." She said it loud enough for the nearest recruits to hear. Marcus heard it. 2 instructors near the back heard it. The recruits who had been staring at the floor looked up. Brock's smile disappeared. He released her collar slowly and stepped back, lifting both hands in mock innocence. "Class," he called out, his voice suddenly loud again. "What you just saw was emotional escalation." The recruit personalized the scenario and failed to establish control. Maya's throat burned where his fingers had twisted the fabric. "I followed protocol," she said. "You froze. I created distance. You failed the scenario. You broke the scenario." The words left her mouth before fear could stop them. The room went silent. Brock stared at her. For a moment, he was not the polished instructor, not the livestream performer, not the academy's hard-nosed hero. He was just a man whose authority had been questioned by someone he had already decided was beneath him. He bent, picked up the envelope, and slapped it against his palm. "You hear that?" he said to the room. "Miss William thinks she knows the job better than the instructor. Maybe that runs in the family." Marcus took half a step forward again. This time, Brock did not even look at him. "Don't," Brock said. Marcus stopped. Maya did not blame him. That was another kind of pain. Brock turned toward the nearest camera. The audio light came back on. "For the record," he said, "Recruit Maya William refused to engage the suspect, displayed emotional instability, and challenged a lawful command during a mandatory field reaction test." Maya felt the floor harden beneath her boots. He was writing the lie while she was still standing inside the truth. She lifted her chin. "I am requesting that the full recording be preserved." Brock looked back at her. "The full recording will show exactly what happened." "Yes," Maya said. "It will." Something flickered in his face then. Small, fast, almost nothing. But Maya saw it. Doubt. Then Brock leaned closer, careful to keep his face angled away from the main camera. "You should have stayed out of this academy," he said. "Your father didn't learn. Maybe you will." He turned away and barked for the next recruit to step forward. Maya walked off the mat with her throat burning, her hands steady, and her heart hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. No one clapped. No one spoke. The envelope disappeared into Brock's bag as if it had never existed. Marcus watched her pass, shame and fear fighting across his face. Maya wanted to tell him it was all right, but it was not all right. Brock Callahan had turned a required test into a public humiliation. He had used academy rules like handcuffs. He had spoken her father's name like a trophy from an old crime, and now he was already shaping the official version before the truth had a chance to breathe. But high above the training floor, in the corner Brock had forgotten, a secondary camera kept blinking red. And inside that small machine, his whisper had become more than cruelty. It had become evidence. Maya did not remember walking from the training hall to the women's locker room. She remembered the sound of Brock's voice following her down the corridor, barking orders at the next recruit like nothing had happened. She remembered Marcus saying her name once, low and urgent. But she did not stop. If she stopped, she might turn around. If she turned around, she might say something that would give Brock exactly what he wanted. So she kept walking. Inside the locker room, the air was cool and smelled faintly of soap, damp towels, and old metal. Maya stood in front of her locker with both hands braced against the door. Her reflection stared back from the narrow mirror taped inside it. Same face, same dark eyes, same tight bun, same academy shirt stretched across shoulders she had trained for years to keep square. But there was a red mark at the base of her throat where Brock's fingers had caught the collar. She touched it once, then she pulled her hand away. Do not give him your hands, she thought. Do not give him your face. Do not give him anything he can use. The door opened behind her. Maya. Marcus stood just inside the locker room entrance, careful not to step farther in. He looked like a man who had been running without moving. His jaw was tight. His eyes kept dropping to the mark on her neck, then lifting away as if looking at it made him guilty. You shouldn't be in here, Maya said. I know. He swallowed. I should have said something. She closed her locker slowly. Yes. The word hit him harder than anger would have. Marcus looked down. I froze, he said. I know. That doesn't make it right. No, it doesn't. The silence between them was heavy, but it was not empty. It carried everything that had happened on the mat and everything that had not happened because no one had been brave enough to interrupt it. Marcus stepped back from the doorway. He's already talking to Lieutenant Graves. I saw him outside the office. He had his clipboard, and he was smiling. Maya let out a breath through her nose. Of course he was. He's going to write it up. He already did. He wrote it out loud in front of the camera. Marcus rubbed both hands over his face. You need to file a complaint before he files first. Maya looked at him then. With what? She asked. Your statement? He went still. There it was. The thing neither of them wanted to touch. Marcus opened his mouth, then shut it. Maya, if I go against him alone, he'll say I'm covering for you. He'll say we planned it. He'll say whatever he needs to say. My record is already under review from last week. Maya remembered. Marcus had questioned Brock after a cadet was forced to repeat a restraint drill until he vomited. 2 days later, Marcus was written up for poor attitude during tactical instruction. Since then, he had walked through the academy like a man carrying a glass bowl full of his future. I can't get washed out, he said quietly. Not by him. Maya wanted to be angry at him. Part of her was. But another part, the tired, honest part, understood fear when she saw it. Brock had not just humiliated her. He had trained everyone in that room to measure the cost of telling the truth. I'm not asking you to lie for me, she said. I know. I'm not asking you to save me. I know that too. Then decide what kind of officer you want to be before someone else decides for you. Marcus looked like she had struck him. Maybe she had. Not with her hand, but with something harder. Footsteps sounded in the hall. Marcus glanced back. I have to go, he said. But Maya, ask for the full recording. Don't let them give you the live stream cut. There were other cameras on. Maya looked up. What other cameras? Marcus lowered his voice. Daniel Price was working equipment today. He told me last week they were testing a secondary angle for close contact drills. Ceiling corner. Near the storage cage. I don't know if it was running, but if it was, he did not finish. He did not need to. Maya's heart beat once, hard. Then a female instructor's voice snapped from the hallway. Reed, why are you standing outside the women's locker room? Marcus stepped away fast. Sorry, ma'am. I was just leaving. He looked at Maya one last time. His face said what his mouth could not. Maybe there was a witness after all. 10 minutes later, Maya stood outside the administrative wing with a written request in her hand. It was short, clear, and careful. She requested preservation of all video and audio recordings from the mandatory field reaction assessment, including primary live stream, secondary training cameras, instructor microphones, and equipment logs. She wrote the date, the names of the instructors present. She signed it with a steady hand. Lieutenant Graves read it once without expression. He was a thin man with silver hair and the smooth voice of someone who had spent his career turning problems into paperwork. You understand, Recruit William, that making a formal preservation request may trigger a review of your conduct as well. Yes, sir. And you understand Sergeant Callahan has already reported concerns regarding emotional escalation. I understand he reported that. Graves glanced up. You disagree? I request that the full recordings be reviewed. That is not what I asked. It is my answer, sir. For a moment, his eyes hardened. Then the office door behind him opened. Brock stepped out. He had changed shirts. His hair was damp, as if he had taken the time to clean up before filing the lie. He looked at the paper in Maya's hand, then at her throat. The faintest smile touched his mouth. Still making this worse? He asked. Maya did not answer him. Lieutenant Graves cleared his throat. Sergeant Callahan has submitted an incident report. Pending preliminary review. You are being removed from active tactical participation. Maya's fingers tightened around the paper. For how long? Until the matter is assessed. That could mean anything. It means exactly what I said. Brock leaned against the doorframe. You should take the time to think about whether this career is really for you. Maya turned her eyes to him. I've been thinking about that since I was 15. His smile thinned. Lieutenant Graves took the request from her. You'll be notified of next steps. Until then, you are not to discuss this incident with other recruits. Maya almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the order was so clean, so polite, so perfectly designed to isolate her. Yes, sir, she said. If you can feel what Maya is carrying right now, please like this video. Because sometimes one small sign of support can mean more than people realize. And tell us in the comments where you are watching from today. Maybe someone near you is watching this story too, feeling the same silence, the same anger, and the same hope that the truth will not disappear. By the time she left the building, the afternoon had gone gray. Rain had started, light and cold, spotting the academy sidewalks. Recruits crossed the courtyard in small groups, their voices dropping when they saw her. News traveled fast in places where silence was official. Maya drove home with both hands on the wheel, though her right hand wanted to shake. Her mother's house sat on a narrow street in Garrison Hill, a tired block of brick ranch homes, chain-link fences, and porch lights that came on before sunset. Evelyn William was on the front steps when Maya pulled into the driveway, still wearing her nurse's cardigan, even though she had retired 3 years earlier. Some habits never left the body. Evelyn took one look at her daughter and stopped. What happened? Maya got out of the car. I'm okay. Maya, I said I'm okay. Evelyn came down the steps slowly. She reached for Maya's chin, turned her face toward the porch light, and saw the mark at her throat. For a few seconds, she said nothing. That frightened Maya more than if her mother had shouted. Who put his hands on you? Evelyn asked. Maya looked away. Evelyn's voice lowered. Who? Brock Callahan. Her mother's hand dropped. The name changed the air between them. You know him? Maya asked. Evelyn turned toward the house. Come inside. Mama. Do you know him? I said come inside. The kitchen was warm, smelling of coffee and cornbread. A small lamp glowed on the counter. Maya had eaten dinner at that table through grief, birthdays, overdue bills, college applications, and nights when Evelyn thought her daughter was asleep and cried quietly over paperwork from James's old case. Evelyn pulled a chair out but did not sit. What did he do? She asked. Maya told her. Not all at once. She started with the mandatory test, then the envelope, then the cameras, then the way Brock had touched her collar. She tried to say the last part evenly. She failed. When he thought the audio was off, he said he crushed Dad's career 12 years ago. He said he was going to throw his trash daughter out of the department. Evelyn closed her eyes. Maya had expected shock, rage, confusion. But her mother looked like someone hearing a verdict she had feared for years. You knew, Maya said. I suspected. For 12 years? Evelyn opened her eyes. Your father suspected Brock was involved in more than one falsified report. He was young then, not important enough to be untouchable, but protected by men who were. James thought if he got the right witness, the right tape, the right signature, the truth would survive. It didn't. No, Evelyn said. It didn't. Maya sank into a chair. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were 15. Because you had already lost your father. Because every time I said his name, you looked like you were trying to hold up a house with your bare hands. Maya stared at the table. Evelyn sat across from her. I wanted you to have a life that wasn't built around clearing a dead man's name. But it is, Maya whispered. It always was. Her mother reached across the table. No, your life is not his grave. Do you hear me? You are not here to die inside the same fight that broke his heart. Then what am I supposed to do? Walk away? Evelyn did not answer quickly. The rain tapped against the window over the sink. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked twice and went quiet. I have spent 12 years wanting to tell you to run from that badge, Evelyn said. Every time you put on that academy shirt, I see your father walking out the door with a folder under his arm, believing truth was enough. Maya's throat tightened. And was it? She asked. Evelyn's eyes shone, but her voice stayed firm. Truth is enough only when someone protects it. Maya looked up. Her mother pushed back from the table and went to the hallway closet. When she returned, she carried a small wooden box Maya had not seen in years. It was cedar, scratched at the corners, with a brass latch gone dull from age. Evelyn set it on the table. Inside was James Williams' old badge. Maya did not touch it. Beside it lay a folded page from one of his notebooks. The paper had yellowed. The handwriting was strong and familiar. A badge should protect the frightened, not frighten the powerless. Maya read it once, then again. He wrote that after the complaint? She asked. Evelyn nodded. The night before he gave his statement. Maya's eyes burned. He knew they might come after him? Yes. And he still did it? He said if he stayed quiet, he would have to wear the silence longer than he wore the badge. Maya covered her mouth with one hand. For a moment, she was not a recruit, not a fighter, not a woman trying to stay composed while the world tested how much humiliation she could swallow. She was 15 again, standing beside a closed casket, listening to people speak gently about a man they had abandoned while he was alive. Evelyn reached for her daughter's hand. Baby, a quiet wound still bleeds. Maya closed her fingers around the old notebook page. I filed a preservation request, she said, for all recordings. Evelyn nodded slowly. Good, but Brock filed first. They've removed me from tactical participation. Of course he filed first. Mama, that kind always runs to paperwork after throwing the first stone. Despite herself, Maya almost smiled. Then her phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. She stared at it. Evelyn's face tightened. Don't answer. Maya let it ring. A voicemail appeared seconds later. Then a text. She opened it. The message had no greeting. Saw what happened. There's another camera. Don't trust the livestream cut. Maya stopped breathing. Another message came through. Ask about Daniel Price. Maya looked at her mother. Evelyn read the screen, then looked toward the cedar box, toward James's badge, toward the rain-dark window where their reflections sat side by side. For the first time that day, Maya felt something other than fear or anger. Not hope exactly. Hope was too soft a word. It felt more like a match struck in a closed room. Small, dangerous, alive. At the academy, somewhere behind locked doors and official reports, Brock Callahan was already building his version of the truth. But somewhere else, maybe in a server, maybe in a camera he had forgotten, maybe in the conscience of a frightened recruit named Daniel Price, another version was waiting. And this time, Maya William was not going to let it disappear. Maya did not sleep much that night. She lay in the dark with her phone face down on the nightstand, and her father's notebook page tucked beneath her palm. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Brock's face too close to hers, felt his fingers twist the fabric at her throat, heard that whisper slide into her ear like poison. I crushed old James Williams' career 12 years ago. At 4:13 inches the morning, she stopped pretending rest was possible and got up. By 5:30, she was dressed in plain clothes, sitting in her car across the street from the academy's south entrance, watching headlights cut through the mist. Recruits arrived in clusters, gym bags over shoulders, coffee cups in hand, their breath fogging in the cold morning air. They looked young from this distance. Younger than they looked in formation, young enough to still believe rules were walls and not sometimes doors men like Brock could lock from the inside. Maya's phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Parking lot C. 10 minutes. Come alone. She read it twice. Then she looked through the windshield toward the academy gates. A smarter woman might have called Captain Brooks first. A safer woman might have stayed home. But Maya had learned something from her father's old case. Truth could disappear while good people were waiting for the right time to protect it. She started the car. Parking lot C sat behind the maintenance building, where academy vans, old patrol cruisers, and K-9 training equipment trailers were stored. The place smelled of wet gravel, diesel, and pine needles. Maya parked beside a faded white utility truck and waited. For 3 minutes, nothing moved. Then a side door opened. Daniel Price stepped out wearing an academy hoodie. His blonde hair flattened like he had pulled the hood up and down too many times. He looked both ways before crossing the lot. His face was pale. His hands were shoved deep in his pockets. Maya rolled down her window. Daniel stopped 2 feet from the car. "You shouldn't be here. You texted me." "I know. I shouldn't have." "Then why did you?" He looked toward the maintenance building. "Because I saw what he did." Maya opened the car door and stepped out. "What exactly did you see?" Daniel swallowed. "Enough. That's not an answer." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I was assigned equipment support yesterday. Cameras, audio sync, live stream backup. Brock told me to cut the main audio for 10 seconds during the close contact portion. Said it was part of the scenario because command staff wanted to review nonverbal response." Maya's stomach tightened. "He told you to cut it?" "Yes." "And you did?" Daniel looked ashamed. "He's Brock Callahan. When he tells a recruit to do something, you do it." Maya said nothing. She let the silence hold him there. "But the secondary camera was still running," Daniel said quickly. "Ceiling corner, near the storage cage. It had its own mic." He didn't know. Or he forgot. "I don't know. Did it record what he said?" Daniel looked at her then. "Yes." The word struck Maya so hard she almost had to sit back down. For 12 years, her family had lived under words that could not be proven. For 12 years, her father's name had been held underwater by official language and missing records. Now, one frightened recruit in a parking lot was telling her that Brock's confession existed somewhere outside memory. "Where is it?" she asked. Daniel's eyes moved again toward the maintenance building. "I copied it." "Where?" "I can't carry it out. They started checking bags after last month's equipment theft. And if Brock suspects me, I'm done." "Maya?" Both of them turned. Captain Helen Brooks stood near the end of the lot in a dark raincoat, hands at her sides, expression unreadable. She looked first at Maya, then at Daniel. Daniel went rigid. "Mom, Breathe, Price," Helen said. "If I wanted to scare you, I would have let Callahan find you first." Maya stared at her. "You followed me?" "I followed the problem." Daniel looked like he might be sick. Helen stepped closer. "Tell me what you have." Daniel lowered his voice. "The full file." The camera caught Callahan threatening her, mentioning her father. "Everything." "I put it on a USB." Helen's eyes sharpened. "Where is it?" "In an old K9 training pouch." Maya frowned. "A what?" Daniel pointed toward the equipment trailers. "Canvas pouch. Burlap lining. Used for scent work. Simulated gunpowder. Bite sleeves. Decoy material. I borrowed it from K9 storage yesterday and hid the USB in the inside seam." Helen's face changed. Not much, but enough for Maya to notice. "Why a K9 pouch?" "Because nobody looks twice at old training gear," Daniel said. "And I couldn't take the file off-site. I thought I could hand it to you today, Captain. But Brock was already asking who accessed the secondary camera logs." "Where's the pouch now?" Daniel hesitated. "Price," Helen said. "In Callahan's equipment cabinet." Maya's pulse jumped. "You hid it in his cabinet?" "It was unlocked for inventory." I panicked. It was the one place no recruit would touch. Helen stared at him for a long second. That was either very stupid or very brave. Daniel gave a weak laugh. "Can it be both?" Before Helen could answer, a sound cut across the lot. A dog barked once from inside the K9 trailer, sharp and deep. Then again, Daniel turned pale. Helen looked toward the trailer. Justice. The old K9 came around the corner with his handler, Officer Ramirez, a sturdy woman in a navy jacket. Justice was gray around the muzzle, but his ears were up and his body had gone alert. He pulled slightly toward the maintenance building, nose working the air. Ramirez frowned. "Captain Brooks? Everything okay?" Helen's eyes never left the dog. "Why is Justice out?" "Morning scent check. He caught something and dragged me halfway across the lot." Justice pulled harder. Not toward Daniel. Not toward Maya. Toward the row of instructor equipment cabinets near the side entrance. Daniel whispered, "Oh no." Maya understood before anyone said it. The old dog was not finding a USB. He was finding the pouch. Justice stopped in front of Brock Callahan's cabinet and barked, low and insistent. Ramirez looked from the dog to the cabinet number. "That's Sergeant Callahan's locker," she said. Helen's face tightened. "Ramirez. Log this. Time, location, K9 alert on Academy training equipment." Ramirez looked confused but nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Daniel backed up half a step. "If Brock sees this, he'll know." A voice behind them said, "Know what?" Brock Callahan stood at the corner of the maintenance building with a coffee in one hand and his academy jacket zipped to the throat. Lieutenant Graves was beside him, holding a tablet. Brock's eyes moved over the group, then landed on Maya. "Well," he said. "Suspended recruit on academy grounds before sunrise. Captain Brooks, recruit Price, and my equipment cabinet. That's interesting." Maya felt the morning go cold around her. Helen stepped forward. "Sergeant Callahan, K9 Justice alerted on your cabinet during a routine scent check." Brock looked at the dog, then at Ramirez. "Your dog needs retraining." Justice barked again. Brock's smile flickered. Lieutenant Graves adjusted his glasses. "Captain, unless there is a formal basis for accessing Sergeant Callahan's cabinet, I suggest everyone return to normal duties." Helen held his gaze. "There is now a logged K9 alert on Academy. Owned training equipment. An alert is not a warrant. This is not a private residence. It is an Academy equipment cabinet." Brock set his coffee on a nearby ledge. "Open it then. Waste everybody's time." Daniel's face went white. Maya's eyes moved to him. "Do not react," she silently begged. "Do not give him anything." Helen nodded to Ramirez. Ramirez unlocked the cabinet with the master key from her belt. Inside were gloves, pads, a training baton, spare shirts, a plastic bin of old restraints, and on the bottom shelf, nothing. No pouch. Daniel made the smallest sound in his throat. Brock smiled. "Anything else, Captain?" he asked. Helen did not answer immediately. She studied the empty bottom shelf. Then Justice. The dog was no longer barking. He was sniffing the metal floor of the cabinet, tail stiff, nose tracing the air where something had been. Ramirez frowned. "He's indicating residual scent." Brock clapped once, soft and mocking. "Residual scent. Wonderful. Maybe a mouse carried your evidence away." Maya watched him pick up his coffee with his left hand. With his right, he adjusted the strap of the black backpack over his shoulder. A simple movement. Too simple. Daniel saw it, too. His eyes widened. Brock had already taken the pouch. Helen's gaze followed Maya's. For one brief second, the four of them stood in a square of understanding. Maya, Helen, Daniel, Brock. Then Brock stepped closer to Maya and spoke loudly enough for Graves to hear. "Recruit William, you are currently suspended from tactical participation. If I see you interfering with Academy operations again, I'll recommend immediate dismissal." Maya held his stare. Brock leaned in slightly, lowering his voice just enough to make it personal. "You're chasing ghosts," he said, "just like your father." This time, Maya smiled. Not much, just enough for him to notice. "Then why do you look scared?" The coffee cup tightened in his hand. Lieutenant Graves cut in. "That's enough. Recruit William, leave campus." Helen touched Maya's elbow before she could answer. It was not restraint. It was instruction. "Not here. Not yet." Maya turned and walked back to her car. Daniel did not look at her. Marcus was nowhere in sight. Justice barked once more behind her. Angry now. As if the old dog understood that something meant to be found had just been carried away in plain view. By noon, the story Brock wanted began to spread. Not through official channels at first. Through whispers, then messages, then a cropped photo someone had taken from the maintenance lot. Maya standing near Brock's open cabinet with Captain Brooks and Daniel Price. The caption appeared in a private recruit group before lunch. Suspended recruit caught tampering with instructor equipment. By 3 o'clock, the academy had issued a notice. Maya William was barred from campus except for scheduled administrative meetings. Any further contact with recruits regarding the incident would be considered interference in an internal review. By 5, a local news blog had the story. By 7, Evelyn's phone began ringing. Maya sat at the kitchen table as her mother let the first call go unanswered, then the second, then the third. On the 4th, Evelyn turned the phone off, and placed it face down beside James Williams' badge. Maya stared at the headline on her own screen. Police recruit under review after alleged training incident and equipment tampering. The article did not mention Brock's envelope. It did not mention his hand on her collar. It did not mention James William. It did not mention the second camera. It did not have to. A lie did not need to be complete. It only needed to arrive first. Evelyn stood at the sink, looking out at the dark window. "This is how it started with your father." Maya looked up. "They made it about his behavior," Evelyn said. "His tone, his attitude, his stability, anything but what he saw." Maya's fingers curled around her phone. For the first time since the mat, anger rose in her without shaking. It did not burn wild. It gathered, quiet, focused. Her phone buzzed. This time, the message came from Daniel. He took the pouch. "It's in his backpack. I'm sorry." A second message followed. "I'll testify if I have to." Maya read those words until they blurred. Then another message appeared, from Captain Brooks. "Administrative hearing scheduled Monday. Do not respond publicly. We need the truth intact." Maya set the phone down. Outside, rain began again, tapping against the kitchen glass like fingers asking to be let in. Evelyn turned from the sink. "What are you going to do?" Maya looked at her father's badge, then at the mark still faintly visible on her throat. "I'm going to let him carry the truth into the room himself," she said. Her mother studied her for a long moment. Then Evelyn nodded once, and somewhere across town, Brock Callahan zipped a black backpack closed, believing the only witness left was fear. Monday arrived with a sky the color of wet ash. Maya dressed before sunrise in the only navy blazer she owned, the one Evelyn had bought for her academy interview. It still had a small loose thread near the left cuff. Evelyn noticed it while Maya stood in the kitchen, staring at a cup of coffee she had not touched. "Hold still," Evelyn said. "Mama, we're going to be late. Then we'll be late with you looking respectable." Maya almost smiled. Evelyn took a tiny sewing kit from the drawer and trimmed the loose thread with a pair of silver scissors. Her hands were steady, but Maya knew her mother well enough to see the fear in the way she pressed her lips together. "You don't have to come," Maya said. Evelyn looked up. "Don't insult me this early in the morning. I just don't want you sitting through this. I sat through worse with your father and said nothing because I thought silence might keep the damage smaller. I was wrong. I'm not making that mistake twice." Maya looked away first. On the table, James Williams' old badge lay inside the open cedar box. Evelyn had polished it the night before until the metal caught the kitchen light. It did not look new. Nothing could make it look new, but it looked cared for, and somehow, that hurt more. Maya reached for it, then stopped. Evelyn saw the hesitation. "Take it. I'm not an officer yet." "No," Evelyn said softly. "But you are his daughter." Maya picked up the badge and slipped it into the inside pocket of her blazer. The weight settled against her chest, small but undeniable. Outside, a car horn tapped once. Captain Helen Brooks waited at the curb in an unmarked sedan, engine running, face unreadable behind the windshield. Maya and Evelyn stepped into the cold morning and walked toward her. Helen did not offer comfort when they got in. Maya appreciated that. Comfort had a way of sounding like goodbye before a fight. "The hearing was moved to the East Auditorium," Helen said, pulling away from the curb. "Brock's attorney requested a larger room. He claims transparency." Evelyn gave a dry laugh from the back seat. "People who love transparency usually don't edit videos." Helen's mouth twitched. "Mrs. William, I can already tell I like you." "Good, then don't let them bury my child." Helen looked at Maya in the rearview mirror, then back at the road. "That's not the plan." Maya's phone buzzed in her lap. A message from Daniel. "I'm here. I don't know if I can do this." Maya stared at it for a long moment before typing back. "You already did the hard part. You told someone." He did not respond. At the academy gates, 2 security officers checked IDs. One of them looked at Maya longer than necessary. The other avoided her eyes completely. Word had reached everyone by now. She was not just a suspended recruit anymore. She was the problem walking back into the building. The East Auditorium sat at the far end of the administrative wing, a high-ceilinged room used for graduations, disciplinary hearings, and ceremonies where polished words made hard things sound noble. Rows of chairs had been arranged facing a long table at the front. Behind it sat 3 academy board members, a representative from the state police, a woman from internal affairs, and an administrative judge named Harold Keene, whose silver eyebrows made him look permanently disappointed. Brock Callahan was already there. He sat at the right-hand table in a charcoal suit, not his academy uniform. That was deliberate. He wanted to look like a professional, not an aggressor. A lawyer sat beside him, a smooth-faced man with expensive glasses and a leather folder. Brock's black backpack rested against the leg of his chair. Maya saw it immediately. So did Helen. Justice's pouch was in there. The USB was in there. The truth was sitting 3 feet from Brock's polished shoes, and Brock believed no one could touch it. Marcus Reed sat in the second row, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone pale. When Maya entered, he looked at her once, then down. Daniel Price sat near the aisle in the back, face drained of color, one knee bouncing uncontrollably. Evelyn touched Maya's arm. "Stand straight," Maya breathed in. "Speak clearly, and don't let them steal your name." Maya walked to the left-hand table with Captain Brooks. Judge Keene adjusted his papers. "This administrative hearing concerns the conduct of recruit Maya William during a mandatory field reaction assessment and subsequent allegations of interference with academy equipment. We will proceed in order. Sergeant Callahan, you may begin." Brock's lawyer stood first. "Your Honor, members of the board, this is not a complicated matter." Sergeant Callahan conducted a standard training exercise. Recruit William became emotionally reactive, refused to follow tactical instruction, challenged her instructor, and was later discovered near Sergeant Callahan's equipment cabinet under suspicious circumstances. He clicked a remote. The screen behind the board lit up. Maya watched herself appear on video. Not the whole truth, Brock's truth. The clip began after she was already on the mat. There was no threat of failure, no envelope kicked into her boot, no slur about diversity, no hand at her collar. The audio caught only Brock's public voice, firm and polished, while Maya looked tense and silent. The edited version made restraint look like hostility. Brock's lawyer paused the video on Maya's face. "This," he said, "is not the composure expected of a future officer." Evelyn shifted behind Maya but said nothing. The lawyer continued. "Sergeant Callahan will testify that he attempted to guide recruit William through a high-pressure scenario, only to be met with defiance." Brock stood. He walked to the witness chair with practiced seriousness, took the oath, and sat with his shoulders slightly slumped, as if carrying the burden of reluctant truth. "Sergeant Callahan," his lawyer said, "did you intend to humiliate recruit William?" "No, sir." "Did you offer money as part of a personal challenge?" Brock sighed. "I used a prop to simulate distraction under stress. Officers face unpredictable behavior every day. Money, shouting, insults, threats. It was part of the scenario." Maya felt Helen stiffen beside her. The lawyer nodded. "Did recruit William respond appropriately?" "No. She took it personally. She challenged my authority and failed to control the suspect." "Did you ever threaten her because of her father?" Brock looked almost wounded. "Absolutely not. I respected her father's service." Maya's hand moved toward the inside pocket of her blazer, touching the shape of James's badge through the fabric. The lawyer smiled faintly. "No further questions." Judge Keene looked to the left. "Captain Brooks?" Helen rose slowly. "I have questions." She stepped forward with no folder, no theatrical gestures, nothing but her voice. "Sergeant Callahan, who classified the assessment as mandatory?" "I did, under Academy Training Authority." "And you informed recruit William that refusal would result in immediate failure for insubordination?" Brock hesitated. "I informed her refusal to participate would have consequences." "That wasn't my question." His jaw tightened. "Yes." Helen let the word sit, so she was not free to decline. She was required to train, and after she stepped onto the mat, you introduced a $50,000 envelope? It was a prop. Was it listed in the approved scenario plan? Brock's lawyer stood. "Objection. Training instructors have discretion." Judge Keene looked at Helen. "Answer the question, Sergeant." Brock's eyes hardened. "No, it was not listed." A murmur moved through the room. Helen turned a page on her small notepad, though Maya was almost certain it was blank. "Did you touch recruit Williams' collar?" "No." Maya's head lifted. Helen looked toward the screen. "The edited video does not show that portion." Conveniently, Brock leaned forward. "I never touched her." Daniel's knee stopped bouncing. Helen turned slightly. "Recruit Reed." Marcus looked up as if he had been called from underwater. Judge Keene said, "Mr. Reed, step forward." Marcus walked to the witness chair. Each step seemed to cost him something. He took the oath and sat down, eyes fixed on his hands. Helen's voice softened. "Recruit Reed, did Sergeant Callahan threaten to fail Maya William if she refused to step onto the mat?" Marcus swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." "Did he introduce the money after she complied?" "Yes." "Did he touch her collar?" Marcus closed his eyes for half a second. "Yes." Brock's lawyer stood. "Recruit Reed is a personal friend of the accused and has reason to support her version." Marcus looked up then, fear still in his face, but something else behind it, shame burning into courage. "I'm not supporting her version," he said. "I'm telling what happened." The room went quiet. Helen nodded once. "Did you hear Sergeant Callahan say anything about James William?" Marcus's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Maya felt her chest tighten. Marcus looked at Brock. Brock stared back at him, expression calm, but his eyes were full of warning. "I heard him say her father didn't learn," Marcus said finally. "And maybe she would. Did you hear more than that?" Marcus's voice dropped. "No, ma'am. Not clearly." Brock's lawyer almost smiled. Helen did not. "Thank you." Marcus stepped down looking like a man who had saved part of himself and lost part of himself at the same time. Then Daniel stood before anyone called him. "I did." Every head turned. Daniel Price's voice shook, but he kept walking toward the front. "I heard more than that. Not in the room. On the file." Brock's face changed, just for a second. "What file?" Judge Keene asked. Daniel stood beside the witness chair but did not sit. "The secondary camera file. It recorded everything. The threat, the envelope, the collar, what he said about her father." Brock's lawyer stood sharply. "This is absurd. No such file has been entered into evidence." Daniel looked at the judge. "Because Sergeant Callahan has it." A rush of whispers filled the auditorium. Judge Keene struck the table once with his palm. "Order." Daniel pointed at Brock's backpack. "The USB is inside a K9 training pouch. He took it from his equipment cabinet after Justice alerted on it Friday morning." Brock laughed, but it came too fast. "He's lying." Helen turned to Judge Keene. "Your Honor, we have a logged K9 alert from Friday morning on Sergeant Callahan's equipment cabinet. Officer Ramirez filed it at 6:22 a.m. The Internal Affairs representative leaned forward. "I have that log." Brock's lawyer said, "A dog alert to a cabinet does not justify searching my client's personal bag." "No," Helen said, "but a witness statement identifying Academy property currently concealed in that bag, combined with a prior K9 alert to the same property and an active hearing regarding evidence tampering, does." Judge Keene looked at Brock. "Sergeant Callahan, is there Academy training equipment in your backpack?" "No." The answer came too quickly. Justice barked from outside the auditorium doors. Everyone turned. Officer Ramirez entered holding the leash. Justice stood beside her, gray-muzzled and alert, nose high, body trembling with focus. Judge Keene frowned. "Why is that dog here?" Ramirez looked uncomfortable but firm. "Routine K9 equipment verification, Your Honor. Captain Brooks requested I remain available." Brock's lawyer objected, but Justice had already begun pulling. Straight toward Brock's table, the old dog stopped in front of the black backpack and barked once, deep and certain. Brock stepped back. That movement told the room more than his denials had. Ramirez held the leash tight. "He's indicating on Academy K9 training scent. Burlap pouch, simulated gunpowder, bite material." Judge Keene removed his glasses. "Sergeant Callahan, open the bag." Brock's lawyer leaned in quickly. "Do not consent." Judge Keene's voice turned cold. "This is not a request. The bag is on Academy property, in an administrative hearing, after sworn testimony, and a K9 alert regarding Academy equipment. Open it, or I will have campus security open it." For the first time since Maya had met him, Brock Callahan looked small. He reached down and unzipped the backpack. Inside, beneath a folded jacket and a water bottle, was the old canvas K9 training pouch. Ramirez put one hand over her mouth. Daniel sagged as if his bones had loosened. Helen did not move. A security officer carried the pouch to the judge's table. Inside the seam, exactly where Daniel said it would be, they found the USB. Judge Keene looked at the board. "We will take a short recess while the file is authenticated." Brock stood abruptly. This is a setup. Maya looked at him across the room. No, she said quietly. This is the part you forgot to edit. No one laughed. No one even breathed loudly. And for the first time, the silence in the room did not belong to Brock Callahan. The recess lasted 17 minutes. Maya counted every one of them. She sat at the left-hand table with her hands folded, not because she felt calm, but because she refused to let Brock see anything else. Across the room, he stood near the wall with his lawyer, speaking in short, angry bursts. His face had gone red at the neck. Every few seconds, his eyes cut toward the judge's table, where the USB sat inside a clear evidence sleeve like a small, ordinary thing that had somehow become heavier than every badge in the building. Daniel sat alone in the third row. No one spoke to him. No one touched him. But when Maya looked back, he lifted his eyes just long enough for her to nod once. It was not forgiveness. Not yet, but it was recognition. Marcus remained in the second row, elbows on knees, staring at the floor. He had told part of the truth. Not all of it. Maybe that would haunt him. Maybe it should. But Maya knew courage did not always arrive dressed like a hero. Sometimes it came limping in late, ashamed and trembling, still choosing the right door before it closed. Evelyn leaned close to her daughter and whispered, "Breathe." "I am." "No, you're holding yourself together. That's different." Maya exhaled slowly. Evelyn's hand found hers under the table. "Whatever is on that file, remember this. You are not the one on trial anymore." Maya looked across the room at Brock. He was still talking, still gesturing, still trying to command the air around him. But something had shifted. People were no longer watching him the same way. The board members were no longer politely neutral. Lieutenant Graves stood near the side door, pale and stiff, as if he had just realized paperwork could burn. Captain Brooks returned from the technical room with an Academy IT specialist and the internal affairs representative. Judge Keene followed them in. The room settled before he even sat down. "The file has been reviewed for preliminary authentication," Judge Keene said. "Metadata indicates it was recorded yesterday during the mandatory field reaction assessment by the Academy's secondary training camera. There is no initial indication of editing." Brock's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, preliminary review is not enough to admit this into evidence." Judge Keene looked at him over the top of his glasses. "This is an administrative hearing, counselor, not a jury trial. The board has broad authority to review relevant training records, especially records created by Academy equipment during the incident in question. Sit down." The lawyer sat. For the first time, he looked less expensive. Judge Keene turned to the IT specialist. "Play the file." The lights dimmed. Maya felt her mother's fingers tighten around hers. The screen flickered, then filled with a wide view of the training mat from the ceiling corner near the storage cage. The angle was higher than the live stream. Colder, less dramatic. It showed everything. The recruits lined along the edges, Brock in the center, Maya standing outside the mat before she had stepped forward. Then Brock's voice filled the auditorium. "Miss William, this is a mandatory field reaction test. Step on the mat, or I fail you right now for insubordination." A small sound moved through the room. Not a gasp exactly. More like a collective intake of breath from people realizing the story they had been given started too late. The video continued. Maya stepped onto the mat. Brock held up the envelope. "Knock me down and win $50,000. On screen, he dropped it and kicked it hard. The envelope slid across the mat and struck Maya's boot. The impact made a dull little sound through the speaker, almost nothing. Yet somehow it landed in the auditorium like a slap. Evelyn's hand went still. Maya did not look at her. The file kept playing. Brock circled Maya. He mocked her voice. He called the money a distraction. He mentioned diversity. He said people like her froze in the street. Maya heard herself giving clean commands, calm and controlled, again and again. "Sir, keep your hands visible and step back. Sir, stop. Do not come any closer." Then came the moment at the collar. On the screen, Brock stepped into her space and caught the fabric at her throat. The room changed, not loudly. No one shouted. But Maya could feel the mood turn, like weather before a hard storm. The board members leaned forward. The woman from Internal Affairs stopped taking notes. Marcus closed his eyes. Daniel covered his mouth with one hand. The audio light on the live stream panel went dark in the corner of the frame, but the secondary camera kept recording. Brock leaned close. The whisper came through clearer than Maya remembered, softer, almost intimate, which somehow made it worse. I crushed old James Williams' career 12 years ago, and today I'm going to personally throw his trash daughter out of this department. The auditorium went completely silent. No rustling papers, no shifting chairs, no nervous cough, just silence. Maya felt her mother's hand slip away. Evelyn was staring at the screen. Her face had changed in a way Maya had never seen before. Not grief. Grief had lived there for years. This was something older and sharper. It was the face of a woman who had just heard the ghost in her house given a name. On the other side of the room, Brock stood frozen. The video continued, merciless because truth has no manners. Maya's hand twitched. Brock smiled. Then Maya unclenched her fingers and said, loud enough for the room to hear, "Do not touch me again." The screen showed Brock stepping back, restoring the live stream audio and announcing his false report for the record. Recruit William refused to engage, displayed emotional instability, challenged a lawful command. The file ended. The lights came up. No one spoke. Judge Keene removed his glasses and set them on the table. He looked at Brock for a long time. "Sergeant Callahan," he said, "stand." Brock did not move. His lawyer touched his sleeve. "Sergeant." Brock stood. Judge Keene's voice was low, but every word carried. "Did you or did you not state, on that recording, that you crushed James Williams' career 12 years ago?" Brock swallowed. It was taken out of context. A sound came from Evelyn then. Not a sob, not a laugh. Something in between, wounded and disbelieving. Judge Keene's eyebrows lowered. Out of context? Brock straightened, fighting to recover the room. It was role play. Psychological pressure. The exercise required escalation. I used personal information to test emotional control. Maya looked at him and almost admired the horror of it. Even cornered, he reached for authority. Even exposed, he tried to turn cruelty into training. Captain Brooks stood. "Your Honor, James William was not part of any approved scenario. His disciplinary history was not part of the exercise packet. Sergeant Callahan introduced the name because he had personal knowledge of the prior case." Brock snapped. "You don't know what I knew." Helen turned toward him. "I know you were named in James Williams' original complaint." Another murmur broke across the auditorium. Brock's lawyer rose fast. "Captain Brooks is making unsupported allegations from a sealed personnel matter." Helen lifted a folder from her table. "Not sealed anymore. Internal Affairs reopened portions of the William file last night after Recruit Williams' preservation request, and the K-9 incident created probable administrative cause." Lieutenant Graves looked like he might faint. Judge Keene held out his hand. "Bring me the file." Helen walked it forward. Maya watched the folder pass from Helen to the judge and felt 12 years of closed doors crack open all at once. Judge Keene read silently for almost a minute. The room waited. Brock did not sit. His lawyer whispered something to him, but Brock shook his head once. Hard. Finally, Judge Keene looked up. "This file states that Officer James William reported excessive force, falsified incident reports, and witness intimidation involving then Officer Brock Callahan. The complaint was closed due to missing corroborating evidence." Helen's voice was steady. "Evidence that may now be connected to the statement Sergeant Callahan made on that recording." Brock pointed at her. "You've wanted me gone for years." "No," Helen said. "I wanted the truth found. You were just careless enough to bring it with you." Evelyn stood. Maya turned. "Mama." But Evelyn's eyes were on the judge. "May I speak?" Brock's lawyer objected immediately. "She is not a listed witness." Judge Keene looked at Evelyn for a moment. "Mrs. William, keep it brief." Evelyn stepped into the aisle. She did not walk to the witness chair. She did not need to. The whole room could see her from where she stood. "My husband came home 12 years ago with bruises under his eyes from not sleeping. He said he had seen men use the badge like a fist and call it order. He said if he stayed quiet, he would have to wear that silence longer than he wore the uniform." Her voice shook once, then steadied. "After he reported it, people stopped saying his name with respect. They called him unstable, angry, bitter. They told me to let it go after he died because fighting would not bring him back." She looked at Brock. "For 12 years, My daughter carried a dead man's shame that did not belong to him. Today I heard the man who put it there admit he knew exactly what he had done. Brock looked away. Evelyn's voice softened, which somehow made it stronger. I am not asking this academy to give my husband his life back. You can't. I am asking you to stop letting the lie outlive him. No one moved. Maya felt tears in her eyes and refused to wipe them away. Judge Keene nodded slowly. Thank you, Mrs. William. Evein Schott. The administrative judge turned to the board, then to the internal affairs representative. This hearing is suspended as a conduct review against recruit Maya William. Based on the evidence presented, the matter is hereby converted into an administrative misconduct inquiry concerning Sergeant Brock Callahan. Brock's lawyer stood. Your Honor, I am not finished. Judge Keene's voice cracked across the room. All allegations against recruit William related to emotional instability, refusal to participate, and equipment tampering are dismissed pending final written order. Recruit William is reinstated to active standing effective immediately. Maya did not move. For a second, the words did not reach the part of her that knew how to believe them. Reinstated. Judge Keene continued. Sergeant Callahan, you are suspended from all instructional duties effective now. Your credentials are placed under review. Internal Affairs will take custody of the USB, the K9 pouch, the edited livestream file, and the William personnel complaint. Brock's face had gone gray. The woman from Internal Affairs stood. Sergeant Callahan, you will surrender your academy access card, training credentials, and department-issued equipment before leaving the building. Brock laughed once. A broken, ugly sound. You're all making a mistake. Helen looked at him. No, we made the mistake 12 years ago. That landed harder than any shout could have. Brock turned toward the room, searching for someone, anyone, still on his side. His eyes found the recruits. The same recruits who had laughed when he kicked money into Maya's boot. The same recruits who had stayed silent when he touched her collar. Now not one of them looked willing to stand with him. Marcus rose first. He did not clap. He did not speak. He simply stood. Then Daniel stood. Then two more recruits. Then the whole second row. It was not applause. It was not celebration. It was something quieter and far more damning. A room full of future officers standing not for power, but against it. Maya stayed seated because if she stood, her knees might fail her. Brock grabbed his empty backpack from the floor, but an internal affairs officer stepped in front of him. The bag stays, she said. His hand tightened on the strap. Let it go, Judge Keene said. For one terrible second, Maya thought Brock might refuse. Then his fingers opened. The backpack dropped at his feet. That small sound was the end of him. Brock Callahan walked out of the East Auditorium without his credentials, without his bag, without the story he had edited so carefully. No one followed him. No one called after him. Even his lawyer waited 3 full seconds before gathering his papers and hurrying out. When the doors closed behind them, the room remained quiet. Then Evelyn reached for Maya. Maya stood and turned into her mother's arms. She had not cried when Brock touched her. She had not cried when the video spread. She had not cried when the board watched her face on that screen like a problem to solve. But when Evelyn whispered, "He heard it, baby. Your daddy heard it," Maya broke. Captain Brooks looked away, giving them the mercy of privacy in a public room. After a moment, Marcus approached slowly. "Maya," he said. She wiped her face and stepped back from her mother. Marcus's eyes were wet. "I should have said all of it." "Yes," Maya said. He nodded, accepting the wound. Then she added, "But you stood up before it was over." He exhaled like he had been holding that breath since Friday. Daniel came next, stopping a few feet away. "I'm sorry I hid it." Maya looked at him. "I'm glad you didn't delete it." He gave a shaky laugh that nearly turned into a sob. At the front of the room, Judge Keene gathered his papers. Before leaving, he paused beside Maya. "Recruit William," he said. "Yes, Your Honor. I have reviewed many cases in this building. Most people ask to be believed. You asked that the full record be preserved. That was wise." Maya touched the badge inside her blazer. "My father taught me that missing pieces can bury a man." Judge Keene's expression softened. "Then let us see what can be dug up." He walked out. Maya looked toward the now blank screen. For 12 years, the official story had been stronger than her father's voice. Today, for the first time, the story had cracked. Not completely, not yet, but enough for light to get in. And somewhere beyond the auditorium walls, every locked file connected to James William had just become dangerous. By Tuesday morning, the academy had learned how to whisper again. Maya felt it the moment she walked through the front doors in uniform. Not full dress, not graduation blue, just the standard academy training uniform she had nearly lost the right to wear. Navy shirt, black boots, name strip over her chest, William. People saw it before they saw her face. Some recruits stepped aside. Some nodded. Some looked down. A few offered the kind of smile people give when they want forgiveness without having to ask for it. Maya did not punish them for it. She simply kept walking. Captain Brooks had told her to report to classroom 3B at 0800 hours for reinstatement briefing. The hallway leading there passed the trophy case, the wall of past graduating classes, and a framed photograph of instructors from 12 years earlier. Maya had walked past that wall dozens of times without stopping. That morning, she stopped. There he was, Brock Callahan, younger, narrower in the face, standing in the second row with a grin that had not yet learned how to hide cruelty. 2 places to his left stood James William. Maya's father looked younger than she remembered him, because of course he was. Clean-shaven, straight-backed, eyes steady, not smiling, but not hardened either. He looked like a man who still believed the room would make space for the truth if he carried it in carefully enough. Maya stepped closer to the glass. Someone came up behind her but did not speak. She knew it was Helen Brooks before she turned. There was a stillness to Captain Brooks that filled a space without crowding it. "I asked facilities to leave that photo up," Helen said. Maya kept looking at her father. "Were they going to take it down? After your father's complaint, some people thought it was best not to display controversial personnel." "Controversial," Maya said. "I fought that word then. Not hard enough." The honesty landed quietly. Maya turned. "You were there." Helen nodded. "I was. During the investigation?" "Yes." "And you knew Brock was lying?" Helen's eyes moved to the photo. "I knew James was telling the truth. That is not the same as being able to prove Brock was lying." Maya wanted to accept that. She also wanted to reject it with every part of her. "My father died with people thinking he was unstable. I know. My mother lived 12 years with that. I know that too." "Do you?" Helen did not flinch. "Not the way she does. Not the way you do. But I know what it cost him. I watched doors close. I watched men who owed him loyalty become very busy, looking elsewhere. And I watched myself make calculations I have regretted ever since." Maya studied her. "What kind of calculations?" "The kind people call practical when they are afraid to call them cowardly." That answer did what excuses never could. It made Maya listen. Helen took a slow breath. "James came to me 2 days before he filed the complaint. He had notes, names, partial radio logs, and one witness who had seen Brock strike a handcuffed suspect behind a service station. The witness disappeared before the review. The radio logs were suddenly incomplete. Brock's partner changed his statement. By the end, James looked isolated, emotional, and obsessed, because they made him look that way." "Yes. And you?" Helen's jaw tightened. "I testified that James had concerns about use of force patterns. I did not say enough. I thought if I stayed inside the system, I could do more later." "Did you?" "For years, no." Helen looked at Maya fully. "Yesterday was the first time I felt like maybe I had finally begun paying back what I owed him." Maya looked back at the photograph. Her father's face did not change. The dead gave no approval, no comfort, no easy absolution. They simply remained, forcing the living to decide what memory required. Classroom 3B smelled of coffee and dry erase markers. Lieutenant Graves was already seated at the front table with 2 academy administrators and a woman from Internal Affairs named Denise Carter. Graves did not look at Maya when she entered. His eyes stayed on a folder in front of him. Denise Carter did look at her. She was in her late 40s, with short twists, sharp glasses, and the calm manner of someone who had heard too many lies to be impressed by new ones. "Recruit William," Carter said. "Please sit." Maya sat. Helen remained standing behind her. Arms folded, Carter opened a file. "Your active standing is restored. You will resume coursework tomorrow. Your missed tactical evaluations will be rescheduled with independent oversight. The allegations of equipment tampering have been formally withdrawn. Maya nodded. Thank you. This is not charity, Carter said. The evidence required it. Maya liked her immediately. Lieutenant Graves cleared his throat. The Academy regrets any distress caused by procedural confusion. Maya turned her head slowly. Procedural confusion. Helen made a sound behind her that might have been a cough if anyone wanted to be polite. Denise Carter closed the folder. Lieutenant, no. Graves stiffened. Excuse me? No, Carter repeated. A mandatory assessment was weaponized. A recruit was threatened, publicly humiliated, physically touched, falsely reported, and nearly removed from this academy. That is not procedural confusion. The room went very still. Graves's face colored. My statement was intended to protect liability, Carter said. I understand. But you will not ask this recruit to pretend words have no meaning 5 minutes after we watched what happened when Sergeant Callahan did exactly that. Maya stared at the table, afraid that if she looked up, all the emotion she had spent the morning containing would show. Carter turned back to her. Recruit William. Internal Affairs has opened a full review into Brock Callahan's conduct, including the reopened James William matter. I need to ask you something. Did Sergeant Callahan ever mention your father before the incident? Not directly. Indirectly? Maya thought of glances, pauses, the way Brock used her last name like it had a taste. He called me legacy baggage once during defensive tactics. Graves shifted. That phrase was never documented. Maya looked at him. No one asked me to document insults before they became evidence. Carter wrote something down. Helen's eyes almost smiled. The meeting lasted 40 minutes. Questions, dates, names, who stood where, who heard what, how long Brock's hand stayed at her collar, whether she had ever been alone with him before, whether Marcus had been pressured, whether Daniel had reason to fear retaliation. Maya answered every question as carefully as she could. At the end, Carter closed her notebook. You understand this may widen before it ends. Yes, ma'am. People may get defensive. Institutions do not enjoy mirrors. My father learned that. Carter's expression softened, just a little. Then maybe we can learn something different from him. When Maya stepped back into the hallway, Marcus was waiting near the vending machines. He looked like he had practiced what to say and forgotten all of it. Hey, he said. Hey. A cadet passed between them, looked at Marcus, looked at Maya, and kept walking faster. Marcus rubbed his palms against his pants. I gave a full statement this morning. Maya did not respond right away. To Internal Affairs, he added. All of it. The money. The collar. The stuff about your father that I heard. And the part where I didn't speak up when I should have. Maya leaned against the wall. Why now? He nodded like he deserved that question. Because yesterday I watched Daniel Price shake like a leaf and still tell the truth. And I realized I was asking to wear a badge while letting fear make my decisions. That's an ugly realization. Yeah, he said. It is. Maya looked at him. Really looked. Marcus was not weak. That was what made it complicated. He was kind. He was capable. He wanted to do right. But wanting and doing lived on opposite sides of a line, and Brock had made a career out of teaching people not to cross it. I was angry at you, Maya said. I know. I still am a little. I know that too, but I'm glad you gave the statement. Marcus breathed out. Does that mean we're good? No. He nodded, hurt but accepting. It means we're honest, Maya said. Good takes longer. For the first time in days, Marcus smiled like himself. I can work with honest. Down the hall, raised voices broke through the quiet. Maya and Marcus turned. A group of recruits had gathered near the message board. Someone had posted a printed screenshot from the hearing video, the frame where Brock's hand gripped Maya's collar. Under it, someone had written in black marker, "This is not training." Another recruit tore it down as Maya approached. Command said no unauthorized postings. A young woman named Kelly Tran snatched the paper from his hand. Command also said Callahan was a good instructor. The male recruit flushed. I'm just saying we don't need drama. Kelly turned on him. A man put his hands on her and lied about it. That's not drama. That's a warning. More recruits went quiet. Maya stopped a few feet away. She had barely spoken to Kelly before. Kelly was small, sharp-eyed, and known for beating half the class on written exams while pretending not to enjoy it. Kelly looked at Maya, suddenly unsure. Sorry. I didn't mean to speak for you. Maya looked at the crumpled paper in Kelly's hand. You didn't, she said. You spoke for yourself. Kelly nodded once, something like relief crossing her face. That was when Maya realized the hearing had done more than clear her name. It had cracked something open in the academy. Not wide, not safely, but enough that people who had swallowed discomfort for months were beginning to taste it differently. By late afternoon, the first anonymous statements began appearing in the internal affairs portal. Recruits who had been shoved too hard, mocked for accents, called weak, threatened with failure, told that pain built obedience. 2 former cadets sent emails saying they had left because of Brock and were willing to testify. At 5:40 p.m., Denise Carter called Maya. I thought you should know, Carter said. We found 3 references to your father's complaint in archived disciplinary notes. They were misfiled under unrelated training disputes. Maya stood in the parking lot, one hand on her car door. Misfiled. That is the polite word. What's the honest one? Buried. Maya closed her eyes. Carter continued. We are requesting the original personnel boxes from state storage. Captain Brooks is assisting. This is moving beyond the academy now. Maya looked toward the building. Through the glass doors, she could see recruits crossing the lobby, instructors talking in low voices. The machine still moving, though one of its gears had cracked. What happens to Brock? Maya asked. Eventually. That depends on how deep this goes. And right now, he has been suspended without access. But men like Callahan rarely go quietly. Maya opened her eyes. Across the parking lot, near the far fence, Brock Callahan stood beside a dark pickup truck. He was not supposed to be on campus. He was no longer wearing a suit. Jeans. Black jacket. Baseball cap low over his eyes. But Maya knew him instantly. So did Helen, who had just stepped out of the building behind her. Brock looked at Maya for one long second. Then he smiled. Not the public smile. Not the instructor smile. The real one. He lifted 2 fingers to his brow in a mock salute, climbed into his truck, and drove away. Helen reached Maya's side. Was that him? Yes. Helen took out her phone. I'm reporting it. Maya watched the truck disappear through the gate. The fear came back. But it was different now. It no longer filled the whole room inside her. There were other things there, too. Anger. Clarity. Her mother's voice. Her father's badge. Marcus's late honesty. Daniel's trembling courage. Kelly Tran holding a torn piece of paper and refusing to call harm drama. Maya looked at Helen. He's not done. Helen's face hardened. No, but neither are we. That night, when Maya returned home, Evelyn had set 3 plates at the table. Maya paused in the doorway. Are we expecting someone? Evelyn did not look up from the stove. Captain Brooks called. Said you might need company. I told her to come hungry. Maya's throat tightened. Mama. What? You don't even like people in your kitchen. I like truth in my kitchen, Evelyn said. People are case by case. A knock came at the door. Maya opened it to find Helen Brooks standing on the porch with a file box in both arms. I brought dinner rolls, Helen said. And your father's first statement. Maya looked at the box. For 12 years, James Williams' truth had lived in fragments, hidden under polite labels and locked away by people who hoped time would do what lies could not. Now it sat on her mother's porch in a cardboard box, waiting to be read aloud. Maya stepped aside. Come in, she said. And this time, when the door opened, the past did not feel like a ghost entering the house. It felt like a witness finally coming home. Helen Brooks placed the file box on Evelyn Williams' kitchen table like it was something fragile enough to break and heavy enough to hurt. For a moment, no one touched it. The box was plain brown cardboard, softened at the corners from years in storage. A faded label had been taped across the lid. James William. Misconduct complaint. Archived. Someone had crossed out the last word in black marker and written inactive above it, as if changing the word changed the truth inside. Evelyn stood at the stove with her hand resting on the handle of a pan she had forgotten to move. The dinner rolls Helen had brought sat unopened by the sink. Maya could smell chicken, black pepper, onions, and the old paper scent rising from the box. Where did you get this? Evelyn asked. Helen removed her coat and draped it over the back of a chair. State storage. Denise Carter pushed the request after the hearing. They released a preliminary box for review. Preliminary, Evelyn said. So there's more. There should be. Maya pulled out a chair slowly. Should be? Helen looked at her. Some logs are missing. Some files were relocated. Some were labeled incorrectly. Evelyn turned from the stove. Say buried. We already used the polite words long enough. Helen accepted that with a small nod. Buried. Maya sat, but she still did not open the box. The badge inside her blazer pocket pressed against her chest. She had carried it all day, afraid to leave it behind, afraid of what it might ask from her if she kept it too close. Helen reached for the lid, then stopped. Mrs. William. Maya. Before we start, I need you to understand something. This may not bring peace. Evelyn gave a tired smile. Captain, peace left this house 12 years ago. We're not looking for peace. We're looking for the rest of the sentence. That was when Maya opened the box. The first folder held copies of official complaints. Dates. Case numbers. Names typed in clean black ink. The second held handwritten notes in James Williams' blocky script. The third held photographs printed on dull paper. A gas station at night. A cracked taillight. A young black man sitting on a curb with one eye swollen shut. 2 patrol cars angled beneath fluorescent lights. Maya touched the photograph with 2 fingers. What was his name? Helen leaned closer. Calvin Ross. 19 years old. Pulled over for a broken taillight. Brock and his partner claimed he resisted arrest. Evelyn's voice was quiet. Did he? Helen looked at the photo. James didn't think so. Maya opened the next folder and found a transcript of her father's statement. The first line blurred before she could read it clearly. She blinked hard. Helen saw and asked softly, Do you want me to read? No, Maya said. I need to hear his voice in my own head. She read aloud anyway, not because Helen needed it, but because the kitchen did. I observed Officer Brock Callahan strike the subject after the subject had already been restrained. The subject was handcuffed behind his back and seated on the ground. Officer Callahan then instructed Officer Miller to state in the report that the subject was combative. I objected on scene. Maya stopped. The house made its small night noises around them. Refrigerator hum. Rain against the back window. Evelyn breathing through pain she refused to let become sound. Maya continued. Officer Callahan later told me, quote, You keep writing like that, William, and you'll find out how lonely honest men get. Helen closed her eyes. Evelyn gripped the back of a chair. He never told me that part. He probably didn't want to scare you, Helen said. Evelyn looked at her. It would have been nice to be trusted with fear instead of surprised by ruin. Helen took the words without defense. Maya turned another page. There were names listed under potential witnesses. 2 were crossed out. 1 had a note beside it. Recanted after meeting with supervisor. Another. Transferred. Another. No longer reachable. Then she saw a name that made Helen straighten. Officer Raymond Pike, Maya read. K-9 unit. Helen reached into the box and pulled the page closer. Pike was Justice's first handler. Maya looked up. Justice was connected to Dad's case? Helen nodded slowly. Pike contacted James after the Ross arrest. He said Justice alerted near the back of Brock's cruiser, not near Calvin Ross. James thought Brock may have planted a weapon after the stop went bad. Evelyn sat down hard. Maya felt the kitchen tilt again, just as it had on the mat when Brock whispered in her face. There was a weapon? A small revolver, Helen said. Brock claimed Calvin tossed it under the cruiser during the struggle, but Pike said the scent trail didn't match that story. He told James off the record that Justice kept going to Brock's trunk area. What happened to Pike? Helen's face darkened. He retired early. Medical reasons, officially. Unofficially? He stopped cooperating after Internal Affairs dismissed the first complaint. Maya looked toward the window, where the rain turned the glass into a dark mirror. Justice had not just found Daniel's pouch because of training. The old dog had been circling Brock's lies for longer than any of them understood. Evelyn whispered, That dog remembered. Helen nodded. Maybe not the way people remember. But dogs know patterns. Scents. Routines. Things humans explain away. Maya reached deeper into the box and found a smaller envelope sealed with aging tape. Across the front, in James's handwriting, were 3 words. If needed later. Her fingers froze. Evelyn covered her mouth. Helen leaned forward. Maya. She opened it carefully. Inside was a cassette tape and a folded note. Maya unfolded the note. Her father's handwriting filled the page. If this ever reaches someone who still believes the truth matters, start with the audio. I do not know how much longer I can keep the department from making this about my temperament instead of Brock's conduct. Evelyn, if you are reading this, I am sorry. I thought protecting you meant carrying more alone. I was wrong. Evelyn made a sound then. This time she did not stop it. It broke out of her chest and filled the kitchen. Maya rose, went to her mother, and put both arms around her. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Helen stood and turned away, not out of discomfort, but respect. When Evelyn finally sat back, her eyes were wet but clear. Do we have anything that can play it? Maya almost laughed through her tears. Mama, who still has a cassette player. Evelyn wiped her face with the heel of her hand. Your father did. Hall closet. Top shelf. He never threw anything away if it still had one good use left. 10 minutes later, the old recorder sat in the center of the kitchen table. It was black, scratched, and heavier than Maya expected. Helen checked the tape carefully before inserting it. Ready? She asked. No one was ready. Maya nodded. The tape clicked. Hissed. Then James Williams' voice entered the room. At first, Evelyn folded over as if struck. Maya stopped breathing. James sounded younger than memory, tired, but steady. This is Officer James William, badge number 4172, recorded the 8th of March 2012. If this statement is needed, it means the written complaint has either been buried or discredited. I am documenting a conversation with Officer Brock Callahan that occurred behind Bay 3 of the service garage at approximately 2,210 hours. There was static, a distant metallic clang. Then Brock's younger voice, rougher but unmistakable. You don't know when to quit, do you, William? James answered. A 19-year-old kid is facing a felony on a gun you know he didn't throw. Brock laughed. Kid should have listened. You hit him after he was cuffed. You saw what you wanted to see. I saw enough. Brock's voice sharpened. Then see this. You keep pushing, and I'll make sure every captain in this state thinks you're unstable, angry, obsessed. You'll be lucky if they let you direct traffic at a school crossing. Maya's hands curled against the table. On the tape, James said, Is that a threat? No, Brock replied. That's me teaching you how the world works. The audio crackled. Then came one final line from Brock. You want to be a hero for people who won't even remember your name? Fine. I'll make sure your own daughter grows up ashamed to carry it. Evelyn stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. Helen stopped the tape. No, Maya said. Helen looked at her. Play the rest. Maya, play it. Helen pressed the button. James's voice returned. Closer now. Alone. If anything happens to this complaint, my daughter's name is Maya William. She is 15 years old. She thinks I am stronger than I am. I need whoever hears this to know I did not do this because I wanted to be right. I did it because I wanted her to grow up in a world where a badge did not make cruel men untouchable. The tape hissed, then clicked off. The kitchen held the silence like a body. Maya did not cry this time. Something deeper than tears had opened inside her. The tape had not brought her father back, but it had returned his spine to the story. It had given shape to the thing that killed him. Not cancer, not a crash, not one clean tragedy anyone could name and bury. It was pressure, isolation, a system teaching a good man that truth without witnesses could become a coffin. Helen reached for her phone. Denise Carter needs to hear this tonight. Evelyn looked at the cassette. Will it hold up? Helen nodded slowly. It changes everything. Brock threatened James 12 years ago, then echoed that threat to Maya on Academy video. That shows pattern, motive, retaliation. It ties both cases together. Maya touched the recorder. Calvin Ross. Is he still alive? Helen paused. Last I heard, yes. But he disappeared from public records after the conviction. Conviction? The gun charge stuck. He served time. Maya closed her eyes. A 19-year-old kid, a planted gun, a ruined father. A daughter targeted 12 years later. Brock had not just damaged one family. He had built his career on the silence left behind. Evelyn seemed to read her thoughts. Maya, don't run into the fire without knowing where the exits are. Maya looked at her mother. I'm not running. I'm following the smoke. Helen typed a message, then looked up. Carter can reopen the Ross case, but we need Calvin. Or Pike. Preferably both. Find them, Evelyn said. Helen gave a sad smile. Mrs. William, it's not always that simple. Evelyn's eyes hardened. My husband left a tape in a box for 12 years, and a dog found a USB in a police academy. I think Simple gave up on this family a long time ago. Maya looked at Helen. Where do we start? Helen hesitated, then pulled one page from the folder. Raymond Pike. Last known address is outside Gastonia. If this is still current, he lives alone. Maya stood. Evelyn stood with her. Helen frowned. Tonight? Maya picked up her coat from the back of the chair. Brock saw me in the parking lot. He knows this is widening. If Pike knows something, we may not be the only ones looking for him. Evelyn took James's badge from the table and pressed it into Maya's palm. Then don't go as his shadow, she said. Go as his daughter. The rain had slowed by the time Maya and Helen stepped onto the porch. Behind them, Evelyn stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame, the old cassette recorder visible on the kitchen table behind her. For 12 years, the past had sat in that house like a locked room. Tonight, the door was open, and somewhere beyond the wet streets and dark pines, the next witness was waiting. The drive to Gastonia took 40 minutes and felt longer. Rain streaked across the windshield in thin silver lines. The wipers beat back and forth with the steady patience of a clock. Maya sat in the passenger seat of Captain Brooks's sedan, James Williams' badge closed in her fist, the old cassette's words still moving through her mind. I'll make sure your own daughter grows up ashamed to carry it. She looked out at the dark highway. For 12 years, shame had lived in her house like an inherited disease. It had sat at the dinner table when her mother grew quiet on the anniversary of her father's death. It had followed Maya through school when teachers said her last name carefully after looking at her file. It had stood behind her every time someone asked, "Wasn't your father that officer who had problems?" Now she knew shame had never belonged to James William. It had been delivered there. Helen drove with both hands on the wheel. She had not said much since they left Evelyn's house. That was one thing Maya had begun to understand about her. Captain Brooks did not fill silence just to prove she was present. She let it work. After a while, Maya said, "Did you ever meet Calvin Ross?" Helen kept her eyes on the road. Once. At the first review, he was 19 and terrified. He had a public defender who was juggling too many cases, and a mother who cried through the whole hearing. What did he say? That Brock hit him after he was cuffed, that the gun wasn't his, that he kept asking why they were doing this, and nobody answered, and nobody believed him. Helen's jaw tightened. James believed him, but James wasn't enough. No, Helen said. He wasn't. Maya turned the badge over in her hand. The metal felt warm now. That's what scares me. What? That maybe good people are never enough unless the system wants them to be. Helen was quiet for a mile. Then she said, "Your father once told me the system isn't one thing. It's people. Some brave, some tired, some rotten, some waiting for someone else to go first. That doesn't excuse it, but it means it can move." Maya looked at her. "Do you believe that?" "I didn't for a long time." "And now?" Helen glanced at her. "Now I'm driving through the rain with his daughter to find a retired K-9 officer who might help reopen a buried case, so I suppose I'm willing to be surprised." The address in the file led them down a narrow road lined with pine trees and dark fields. The houses sat far apart, most with pickup trucks in the driveways and porch lights glowing yellow through the rain. Raymond Pike's place was a small white house with peeling shutters, a leaning mailbox, and a chain-link kennel behind the garage. No dog barked when they pulled in. Helen turned off the engine. "Let me speak first," she said. Maya looked at the house. "Why?" "Because if Pike is scared, your last name may close the door before we get through it." Maya wanted to argue. Then she remembered the tape, the crossed-out witnesses, the word recanted. Fear had taken men stronger than Raymond Pike. She nodded. They stepped into the rain and walked to the porch. Helen knocked twice. No answer. She knocked again, harder. "Mr. Pike? Raymond Pike? Captain Helen Brooks? Carolina State Police Academy." Something moved behind the curtain. A lock turned. The door opened 3 inches. Held by a chain. A man in his late 60s looked out through the gap. Thin face. White stubble. Deep lines around eyes that had learned suspicion as a second language. "I'm retired," he said. Helen held up her badge. "We're not here about anything current." "That's worse." His eyes moved to Maya. They stopped there. "You're his girl," he said. Maya felt the words in her chest. "James William was my father." Pike closed his eyes for half a second. "I wondered when this would come." Helen said, "May we come in?" "No." Maya stepped forward before Helen could stop her. "Mr. Pike, Brock Callahan is being investigated again. We have a recording of him threatening my father. We have video of him admitting he crushed his career. We found your name in my father's file." The old man's face changed at Brock's name, but the door did not open. "I told your father what I knew," Pike said. "That didn't save him." "No," Maya said, "but it might save someone else now." Pike looked at her for a long time. Then he closed the door. Helen exhaled softly. The chain slid back. The door opened. Inside, the house smelled of coffee, old wood, and medicine. A recliner sat facing a muted television. Framed photos lined the wall. Pike in uniform. Pike with a German shepherd at his side. Pike shaking hands with officers. Maya did not recognize. In one photo, a younger justice stood alert beside him, black and tan coat shining, eyes fixed on something beyond the frame. Pike saw Maya looking. "He was a good dog," he said. "Better than most men I worked with." "He's still working," Maya said. Pike's eyes sharpened. "Justice is alive?" Helen nodded. "Retired from patrol. Used for training now." A strange softness moved across Pike's face. "I thought he'd be gone by now." "He found evidence in the Callahan matter," Helen said. "Twice." Pike gave a humorless laugh. "Of course he did. That dog always did hate Brock." He led them to the kitchen table and lowered himself into a chair. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up a mug, though Maya could not tell if it was age, illness, or memory. Helen sat across from him. Maya remained standing for a moment, then sat beside her. Pike looked at Maya. "Your father was a decent man." Maya's throat tightened. "People keep saying that after telling me they didn't help him enough." The old man absorbed it like he deserved it. "I was one of those people," he said. Helen did not interrupt. Pike stared into his coffee. "The Ross stop was wrong from the beginning. Broken taillight," they said. "Calvin Ross was scared, but he wasn't violent. Brock pulled him out too hard. Kid mouthed off. Brock didn't like being mouthed off to. By the time I got there, Calvin was cuffed and sitting on the curb." "Was there a gun?" Maya asked. Pike looked up. "Not where Brock said there was." "What did Justice find?" "Gun oil and powder scent near Brock's trunk mat. Not under the cruiser, not near Calvin, near Brock's gear." Justice kept pulling me back there. "I told Brock the dog wasn't confirming his story. He told me my dog was old and confused." "Was Justice old then?" Pike almost smiled. "He was 3. Fastest nose in the county." Maya leaned forward. "Why didn't you testify?" The question landed hard. Pike set the mug down. "Because my daughter had just had twins. Because my pension was close. Because my wife was sick. Because men like Brock don't come at you straight. They come at your schedule, your benefits, your reputation, your family. Pick whichever excuse makes me sound least cowardly." "I'm not here to rank your excuses," Maya said. "I'm here because my father can't ask you himself." Pike's eyes watered. "He came here once," Pike said. "James." After the review started turning on him. "Stood right where you're standing. Asked me to go on record. I told him I needed time." "How much time did you need?" He looked away. "More than he had." Maya sat back. The room seemed smaller. Helen spoke gently. "Ray, did you keep anything from the Ross case?" Pike's eyes flicked to hers. That was answer enough. "What do you have?" Helen asked. Pike stood slowly. "Wait here." He walked down the hall with one hand trailing along the wall. Maya heard a closet door open, then something heavy being dragged. When Pike returned, he carried an old metal lockbox. He set it on the table and took a key from a chain around his neck. "My wife told me to throw this out after James died," he said. "She said ghosts don't pay medical bills." She wasn't wrong. He opened the box. Inside were 2 folders, a small plastic evidence bag, and a worn K-9 training log. Pike pushed the log toward Helen. Justices sent records from that week. Unofficial copy. Shows 3 alerts inconsistent with Brock's report. Helen opened it carefully. Her face grew still as she read. Maya picked up one folder. "What's this?" "Notes I wrote after James came to see me. Everything I should have said under oath." "And the evidence bag?" Pike did not touch it. Helen did. Inside was a strip of dark fabric with a faded label. "Trunk liner," Pike said, "from Brock's cruiser. I cut a piece during vehicle cleaning 2 days after the arrest." Stupid thing to do. Illegal, maybe. I don't know. But justice would not leave that trunk alone, and I wanted to know why. Helen stared at him. "Ray, do you understand what this is? Something I should have handed over 12 years ago." Maya looked at the old man. "Why keep it?" Pike's voice broke. "Because I was ashamed to destroy it." Silence settled over the kitchen. Then headlights swept across the front window. Pike turned sharply. Helen stood. "Are you expecting someone?" "No." Another vehicle pulled into the driveway behind Helen's sedan. A truck door slammed. Maya knew before she saw him. "Brock." Pike's face went gray. "He called earlier." Helen's eyes locked on him. "You didn't tell us that." I didn't answer. Heavy footsteps crossed the porch. Brock knocked once. Not polite, not asking. A fist against wood. "Ray," Brock called. "Open up. We need to talk." Helen moved toward the hallway window and looked through the curtain. Her voice lowered. "It's him." Maya stood, heart kicking hard. Pike whispered, "I can't do this." Maya looked at the lockbox, at the K-9 log, at the strip of trunk liner that had waited 12 years for someone to stop being afraid. Then she looked at Pike. "Yes, you can." Brock knocked again. "Ray, I know they're in there." Helen took out her phone and began recording. Maya picked up the lockbox and slid it toward Pike. "You said my father came here and asked you to go on record. He can't come back. But I'm here." Pike's mouth trembled. Outside, Brock's voice hardened. "Open the damn door." Pike stared at the door like it was 12 years wide. Then he stood. For a moment, he was not an old man in a quiet kitchen. He was a K-9 officer again, with a good dog at his side, and one last chance to call a scent what it was. He walked to the door and opened it before Helen could stop him. Brock stood on the porch, rain on his jacket, anger in his eyes. When he saw Maya, he smiled. "You just don't quit, do you?" Maya said nothing. Pike did. "She gets that from her father." Brock's smile vanished. Pike stepped back, leaving the door open wide enough for the porch light to fall across all of them. "And this time," the old officer said, voice shaking but clear, "I'm going on record." Brock stood under Raymond Pike's porch light with rain dripping from the brim of his cap. His eyes moving from Pike to Helen, from Helen to Maya, and finally to the metal lockbox on the kitchen table behind them. For a second, no one spoke. Then Brock laughed. It was not the polished laugh from the training hall or the confident laugh from the hearing. This one came out thin, almost breathless, like a man trying to make a room smaller by pretending nothing inside it could hurt him. "Going on record?" he said. "Ray, you can barely remember what you had for breakfast." Pike's hand tightened on the doorframe, but he did not step back. "I remember Calvin Ross," he said. "I remember justice pulling to your trunk. I remember James William asking me to tell the truth. And I remember being too scared to do it." Brock's face hardened. "You need to be careful." Helen lifted her phone slightly. "He is being careful. This conversation is being recorded." Brock's eyes snapped to her hand. "Of course it is," he said. "You people don't know when to stop." Maya stepped forward just enough for Brock to see her clearly. "You came to a retired officer's home after being suspended and ordered off academy property. You don't get to lecture anyone about stopping." Brock looked at her then, really looked. There was hatred in his face, but beneath it something more dangerous. Calculation. The same quick adjustment she had seen in the hearing when the bag was opened. He was already rewriting the moment, searching for a version in which he was the victim. "I came to check on an old colleague," he said. Pike gave a bitter laugh. "You never checked on me a day in your life, because you were never important enough." The words slipped out too cleanly to take back. Pike flinched, but only once. Helen's phone remained steady. Brock saw it and changed tone. "Ray, listen to me. These people are using you. They want to drag up old garbage because Maya here couldn't handle a training exercise. You start making wild claims, they'll put you under oath. They'll tear apart your medical history, your retirement records, your memory issues. You want that? Pike's face went pale. Maya looked at him and saw the old fear returning, not as a memory but as a muscle. Brock knew exactly where to press. He had done it for years, maybe decades. He did not just threaten people. He reminded them of everything they could lose if they became inconvenient. Maya moved beside Pike. "My father heard those same threats," she said. "He stood alone. You don't have to." Brock scoffed. "Your father destroyed himself." "No," Pike said. The word was quiet, but it stopped Brock. Pike opened the door wider. Rain blew in across the threshold. He did not seem to feel it. "No," he said again, stronger. "James William told the truth. I let him stand there by himself. That's the difference." Brock's jaw worked. Helen stepped forward. "Sergeant Callahan, leave the property." "Or what?" "Or I call Gaston County deputies and explain why a suspended academy instructor is intimidating a material witness in an active internal affairs investigation." Brock stared at her. For one long second, Maya thought he might step inside anyway. She saw it in his shoulders, in the way his right hand flexed near his pocket. But Brock Callahan had survived by knowing where the cameras were, when the microphones were on, and how much force he could use before a room turned against him. Tonight, Helen's phone was raised. Pike was standing. Maya was watching. The room was no longer his. He stepped back from the door. "This won't save you," he said to Maya. She did not answer. He looked at Pike. "And this sure as hell won't save you." Pike's voice shook, but it did not break. "I don't need saving from a man I should have stopped 12 years ago." Brock's face twisted. Then he turned and walked into the rain. They watched through the open door as he climbed into his truck, slammed it into reverse, and backed out too fast, tires spitting gravel. His taillights disappeared down the dark road. Only then did Pike close the door. The old man leaned against it, breathing hard. Helen lowered her phone. Maya reached for him, but he lifted one hand. "I'm all right," he said. No one believed him, but they let him have the sentence. Helen set the phone on the table. "Ray, we need to move quickly. If he came here, he knows or suspects you have something." Pike nodded toward the lockbox. "Take it." Helen hesitated. "You understand chain of custody may be questioned. Then write down that I voluntarily surrendered it to you tonight, in my kitchen, after Brock Callahan came to intimidate me." He looked at Maya. "And write down that I should have done it 12 years ago." Maya held his gaze. "We can write down tonight. The rest you'll have to say yourself." He swallowed. "I will." Helen called Denise Carter from the kitchen. Within 20 minutes, 2 internal affairs investigators were on their way. Pike made coffee no one drank. Maya sat at the table and read through the K9 log while Helen photographed each item before moving it. Justice's records were detailed. Date, time, training location, sent target, handler notes. Beside the Ross arrest follow-up, Pike had written, "K9 repeatedly returns to trunk mat of Unit 12, despite command redirection. No alert under suspect vehicle location. Possible contamination or planted source." Maya read the line 3 times. Planted source. 2 words that could have saved a 19-year-old boy. 2 words that could have protected her father. 2 words that had slept in a box while lives bent around their absence. "Calvin Ross went to prison because of this," she said. Pike sat across from her. "Yes. Did you ever try to find him?" "Once," Pike said. "After my wife died. I found an address in South Carolina, but I never went." "Why?" His eyes filled with shame. "Because I didn't know how to knock on a man's door and say, 'I helped ruin your life because I was afraid for mine.'" Maya looked down at the log. "You just said it." Pike nodded, but it gave him no relief. The internal affairs car arrived a little after 10. Denise Carter came herself, wearing jeans, boots, and a state police jacket over a gray sweater. She stepped into the kitchen, took in the box, the recorder, the files, Pike's face, Maya's silence, and Helen's phone on the table. "Tell me Brock didn't do something stupid on camera," Carter said. Helen handed her the phone. "He did something stupid on camera." Carter watched the recording once, expressionless. Then she looked at Pike. "Mr. Pike, are you willing to give a sworn statement tonight?" Pike glanced at Maya. She did not nod. She did not encourage him like a child. She simply looked back, giving him the dignity of choosing. "Yes," he said. "Tonight." Carter took out a digital recorder. "Then let's begin." Raymond Pike's statement lasted nearly 2 hours. He spoke of the Ross arrest, of Justice's alert, of Brock's anger, of James Williams standing beside the cruiser, writing notes under a gas station light while other officers made jokes behind his back. He described the meeting when he recanted. The captain who told him one officer's confusion could destroy a lot of good careers. The benefits coordinator who suddenly had questions about his medical leave. He admitted he had kept the log and trunk liner because he knew the official file was wrong. At one point, his voice failed. Carter paused the recorder. "Do you need a break?" Pike shook his head. "No," he said. "I took 12 years of breaks." He continued. Maya sat beside Evelyn's old friend Helen Brooks in that small kitchen and listened to the past assemble itself piece by piece. Not cleanly, not painlessly. But truth did not need to be clean to be true. It only needed to stop hiding. When the statement ended, Carter sealed the tape, the log, the trunk liner, and the written notes into evidence bags. She gave Pike a receipt for each item. Then she turned to Maya. "Calvin Ross is alive," she said. Maya stood. "You found him?" "I had an analyst run a quick trace while we were driving here. He lives outside Columbia under his mother's last name. Works nights at a warehouse. No new felony record since release." Helen exhaled slowly. Maya looked at the photograph of Calvin in the file. 19 years old. One eye swollen. Hands cuffed. A boy whose life had been redirected by a lie before he was old enough to understand how long lies could last. "Does he know?" Maya asked. "Not yet," Carter said. "And we need to approach carefully. He may not want anything to do with us." "Can you blame him?" "No," Carter said. "That's why I'm telling you before I call him. If he agrees to speak, he may ask why now. He may ask why your father's case matters after his life was already changed." Maya looked at James's badge in her palm. "Then I'll tell him the truth," she said. "It mattered then. We were just late." Carter studied her for a moment. "Late truth can still be expensive." "It should be." No one argued. By the time Maya and Helen left Pike's house, the rain had stopped. The road shone black under the headlights. Pike stood on the porch as they pulled away, smaller than he had seemed when they arrived, but somehow straighter. Maya watched him disappear in the side mirror. Helen drove in silence for several miles. Then her phone rang. She answered on speaker. "Brooks." Denise Carter's voice filled the car, calm but tight. "Brock just gave an interview to Channel 8. Helen cursed under her breath. "When?" 10 minutes ago. Outside his attorney's office. He claims the academy is framing him to cover up diversity-driven hiring failures. He says Maya Williams is part of a political purge. Maya stared through the windshield. Carter continued. "It gets worse. He named James Williams as a disgraced officer and suggested Maya is trying to rewrite family history for personal revenge." Helen's hands tightened on the wheel. "That violates about 6 directives." "He doesn't care anymore," Carter said. "He's going public before the evidence can." Maya felt the old pattern trying to rise again. The lie arriving first, the headline forming before the record, the dead being dragged through mud because the living had not yet spoken loudly enough. Helen looked at her. "Maya, don't respond tonight." Maya's phone began vibrating. Then again, messages flooded the screen. Unknown numbers. News alerts. Marcus. Evelyn. One headline appeared at the top. "Suspended instructor says black recruit targeted him in academy scandal." Maya closed her eyes. Brock was doing it again. Cut the story. Change the frame. Step in front of the truth and speak first. Only this time, he had miscalculated. Because the truth was no longer in one camera, one file, one frightened witness, or one dead man's notebook. It was in a USB, a cassette tape, a K9 log, a strip of trunk liner, a retired officer's sworn statement, a mother's grief, a daughter's name, and soon, maybe, in the voice of Calvin Ross. Maya opened her eyes. "Captain," she said. Helen glanced at her. "When this is over, I don't just want my academy spot back." Helen nodded slowly, as if she already knew. Maya looked at the road ahead, dark and wet, and finally visible under the headlights. I want everything he buried opened. The monthly safety night outgrew the Garrison Hill Community Center by its third meeting. At first, Maya thought Evelyn was exaggerating when she called at noon and said, "You need more chairs." "Mama, we already set up 60. Then you need 80. 80 people are not coming to a Tuesday night workshop." Evelyn was silent for one full second, which in their house meant Maya had said something foolish enough to deserve mercy before correction. "Baby," she said, "there are people standing outside already." Maya left the station early with permission from Captain Brooks and drove across town still in uniform, a paper bag of handouts sliding around on the passenger seat. When she turned onto the community center block, she saw cars lined along both sides of the street, mothers with strollers, older men in church hats, teenagers on bikes, 2 reporters near the curb, though Maya had asked them not to come inside unless invited by the community. On the front steps, Marcus Reed was trying to carry 10 folding chairs at once while Kelly Tran criticized his technique with unnecessary precision. Daniel Price stood near the entrance with a clipboard, looking overwhelmed and strangely happy. Maya parked and got out. A little girl near the steps pointed at her. "That's Officer Maya." Her mother leaned down. "Yes, it is. Don't point." Maya smiled at the child. "It's okay. I point at myself sometimes just to make sure I'm still here." The girl giggled. Inside, the gym was full of sound. Not chaos. Life. People greeting neighbors, comparing stories, signing forms, taking handouts, asking where to put donated snacks. Justice lay near the front row in his retired vest, accepting admiration like an elder statesman. Raymond Pike sat beside him with a cane across his knees, looking less like a man waiting for judgment and more like one learning how to remain in the world. Calvin Ross stood at the far wall with Lorraine, talking to a young man in a delivery uniform. Calvin had become the part of the meetings Maya never expected and now could not imagine without. He did not soften the truth for anyone. He did not perform forgiveness. He told people what happened when a lie entered the system and paperwork taught it how to live. People listened because he had earned the right not to make pain pretty. Evelyn met Maya at the kitchen window and handed her a stack of homemade cornbread wrapped in foil. "I thought you said this was a workshop, not a church supper," Maya said. Evelyn looked out at the crowded gym. "People learn better when they are fed." "You made enough for 80? "I made enough for 100. Maya raised an eyebrow. "And Lorraine brought chicken," Evelyn added. "Mama, what?" Justice may be retired, but he is not the only one here with sense. Maya laughed and carried the food to the table. At 7 o'clock, she stood at the front of the gym and waited for the room to settle. It took longer now. There were more people, more chairs, more children whispering, more elders adjusting their glasses. On the wall behind her hung a framed copy of the William Standard beside a photograph of James William that Evelyn had finally allowed to leave the house for one night a month. Under it, someone had placed the old handwritten sign from the academy, the whole story. Maya looked at those words before she spoke. "Good evening," she said. "Good evening," the room answered, uneven but warm. "If this is your first time here, welcome. If this is your second or third time, welcome back. If my mother personally told you to come and you felt you had no choice, blink twice and we'll form a support group later." Laughter moved through the room. Evelyn did not laugh, but her mouth twitched. Maya continued. "Tonight we're talking about traffic stops, but we're also talking about something bigger. Fear. Because fear can make a driver reach too fast, and fear can make an officer see a threat where there is only a person. Fear can turn a misunderstanding into a tragedy if nobody in the moment has been trained to slow it down." A teenage boy in the second row raised his hand. "What if the officer doesn't want to slow it down?" The room quieted. Maya looked at him. He was maybe 16, thin, sharp-eyed, wearing a red hoodie and the guarded expression of someone who had already learned to expect lectures from adults. "What's your name?" she asked. "Terrence." "Terrence, that's a real question, and you deserve a real answer. Sometimes an officer won't slow it down. Sometimes you can do everything right and still be treated wrong. I'm not here to sell you a fairy tale. I'm here to help you survive the moment, remember the details, and know who to call afterwards so the story doesn't get cut in half." Terrence nodded slowly. "So we still gotta be the calm ones." Maya felt the weight of that. Half the room did. "No," Calvin said from the wall. Everyone turned. He stepped forward, hands in his pockets. "You shouldn't have to be the only calm one. That's the truth. But until the world gets right, Staying alive comes first. Then comes accountability. Then comes change. Don't confuse surviving with surrendering. Terrence looked at him. Did you stay calm? Calvin gave a small, sad smile. No. I was 19. Scared. Mad. Mouth running because I thought being right would protect me. It didn't. But let me be clear. My anger didn't plant that gun. A crooked officer did. The room went still. Maya let the silence hold because some truths needed room around them. The workshop moved into demonstrations after that. Marcus and Kelly acted out a traffic stop from both sides, with Kelly playing the driver and intentionally asking every question like she was cross-examining Congress. Daniel explained how to safely document badge numbers and patrol car markings. Officer Ramirez brought Justice forward to explain how K-9 searches were supposed to work, and Pike added what happened when handlers ignored the dog because the truth was inconvenient. When Pike spoke, his voice shook at first, then steadied. Dogs don't care about rank, he said, one hand resting on Justice's head. They don't care who looks important. They follow what's there. People could learn from that. By the end of the night, people were not rushing to leave. They stood in circles, asking questions, writing down phone numbers, trading stories. A mother asked Maya if her son could come early next month and help set up chairs. A retired teacher offered to make a sign-in sheet. A barber from 2 blocks over said he could host a smaller men's discussion at his shop. Lorraine started a list for food volunteers before Evelyn could claim total control of the kitchen. Helen arrived late, just as people were cleaning up. She stood in the doorway for a moment, watching the room with a look Maya could not immediately read. You look like you're about to say something official, Maya said. Helen smiled. I'm off duty. I'm allowed to say human things. That sounds dangerous. It is. Helen handed Maya a folder. The state approved the pilot program. Maya opened it. Community Trust and Tactical De-Escalation Partnership. Based on the Williams Standard. 6-month pilot. 3 neighborhoods. 6-month pilot. Academy recruits required to attend community-led sessions before graduation. Maya stared at the page. They approved this? They did. How? Denise Carter scared the right people. Calvin Ross embarrassed the right people. Your mother fed the right people. And you gave them a model they couldn't ignore. Maya looked across the gym. Evelyn was arguing with Marcus about how to stack chairs properly. Calvin was helping Terrence fill out a volunteer form. Daniel was kneeling beside a child who wanted to know if recording police could get her mother in trouble. Kelly was labeling leftover handouts like they were classified documents. This started because Brock tried to humiliate me, Maya said. Helen's voice softened. No, it started before that. Brock just stepped on a story that was already waiting to stand up. Maya closed the folder. A familiar voice came from behind them. Officer William? Maya turned. Terrence stood there with his hood down now, hands tucked into his sleeves. My mom said I should ask you, he said. Ask me what? He looked embarrassed, then forced himself through it. If I wanted to be a cop someday, would people think I'm choosing the wrong side? Maya felt the question move through her like a bell. Calvin had heard it. So had Evelyn. So had Helen. No one answered for her. Maya stepped closer to Terrence. People might, she said. Some because they're hurt. Some because they've seen too much. Some because they don't understand yet. But the better question is, if you wear the badge, whose side will people know you're on when they're scared? Terrence looked down. Maya continued. The badge doesn't choose the side for you. It reveals the side you already chose. He thought about that. Your dad chose right? Maya looked at James's photograph on the wall. Yes, she said, even when it cost him. Terrence nodded once. Then maybe I'll come early next time and help with chairs. Evelyn called from across the gym. If you come early, you eat first. Terrence grinned. Yes, ma'am. After everyone left, Maya stayed behind to turn off the lights. The gym looked bigger, empty, but not lonely. Chairs folded against the wall. Handouts stacked in boxes. A few crumbs on the floor. Justice asleep while Pike tried and failed to wake him gently. Maya stood beneath her father's photograph. For so long, she had believed justice would arrive like a verdict, a headline, a final door slamming shut on Brock Callahan and everything he represented. But now she knew justice was quieter than that most days. It was a teenager asking if he could serve without betraying where he came from. It was a mother learning how to file a complaint. It was a former prisoner teaching boys how to survive without swallowing their dignity. It was a frightened recruit deciding not to delete a file. It was an old K9 following the scent everyone else ignored. Evelyn came beside her, carrying the empty cornbread pan. "You did good tonight." "We did good." Evelyn accepted that. "Your father would have stayed after to sweep." Maya looked around. "Of course he would." "So?" Maya laughed. "So we sweep." Evelyn handed her a broom. Together, mother and daughter crossed the old gym floor, sweeping crumbs, paper scraps, and dust into small piles. It was not glamorous. No cameras, no applause, no viral clip. Just work, the kind that came after standing up, the kind that made standing up mean something. Near the door, Helen turned off the last row of lights. Calvin carried the trash out. Marcus locked the chair closet. Kelly checked the sign-in sheets. Daniel taped the next meeting date to the door. Pike finally convinced Justice to stand. Before leaving, Maya looked back once more. The room was dim now, but her father's photograph still caught a thin line of light from the hallway. Under it, the sign remained. "The whole story." Maya smiled. The story was not over, but at last, it belonged to more than the people who tried to bury it. The lesson from Maya Williams' story is simple, but powerful. Truth may be delayed, buried, edited, or mocked, but it does not die when good people refuse to let it disappear. Courage is not always loud. Sometimes courage is a young woman standing still when someone wants her to explode. Sometimes it is a frightened witness saving a file. Sometimes it is an old man finally telling the truth after years of regret. And sometimes, justice begins when one person says, "Show the whole story." Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. Your time, your attention, and your heart mean more than you know. If this story moved you, please leave a comment and tell me what you thought about the way it was told. Was the pacing right? Did the characters feel real? Was there a moment that touched you the most? Your feedback helps this channel tell better, deeper, more meaningful stories. And if you have a powerful true story, a family story, or a story of justice, courage, betrayal, forgiveness, or someone who was underestimated but finally proved the truth, please share it with the channel. Your story might become the next one that gives hope to someone who needs it. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.